Ladies and gentlemen, the curtain has risen and the time is nigh for the Red Opera to begin. I am joined today for this new Comics News podcast, a special interview by two wonderful people that we've already gotten to meet by seeing their excellent, unique, groundbreaking book last Amazon. We have David Granjo.
Hello, guys.
And Jamison Stone.
As always, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having us.
I'm joined today by my colleague, Brad Filicki.
Hello, everyone.
And we get the ultimate pleasure of discussing their current masterpiece, the Red Opera. But I'm going to take a sidestep here. Jamison, will you please tell everyone what is the Red Opera?
Absolutely. So the Red Opera is a tabletop RPG campaign and setting designed for 5th edition. Most people think of 5th edition, they think of Dungeons and Dragons. However, we designed this story so it would be compatible with Pathfinder, World of Darkness, and a bunch of other tabletop role-playing genres. We really wanted to focus on this theater of the mind style gaming, so people could read this adventure even just as a standalone story and enjoy the amazing art done by David Granjo, Carlos Nazario, and some of our other artists, while also being able to run it as a fully fledged campaign, either for new characters within 5th edition or for any pre-existing characters that they may have run from a previous party or campaign setting. This way it would fit seamlessly into whatever story their GMs were running.
Oh, so amazing. Oh, there's so many firsts that are a part of this, and I don't want to rush ahead. So Brad, let me go ahead and move to you, because I know you have to have an amazing question.
I'm curious what challenges presented itself when you were designing the game to be able to be used with all these different types of platforms, and not just say Dungeons and Dragons, but all these other ones. Was that a particular challenge? Was that hard to do?
Yeah, so it's really a very tricky balance to be able to have something be available for multiple platforms. Now, we're really lucky. So Rick Hines, who's the lead writer and the game master of this particular project, he and I kind of came up in our kind of gaming experience when we were much younger in the same genres, primarily through World of Darkness. And so that's Vampire the Masquerade, Wraith, Mage the Ascension, things like that. And we did a lot of LARPing, and this is individually. He's from Chicagoland. I'm from New England, Boston, New England area. And so when we began working together on this project, one of the key things that Rick really wanted to focus on was this theater of the mind style storytelling. So people can definitely run this with fully fledged hex maps and more of a grid style combat if they so choose. But we really wanted to try and have it be as system agnostic as possible. Again, it's designed for 5th edition. That's how all of our stats are outlaid. And so people who run standard D&D and 5th edition will feel right at home. But we have a lot of people who have talked about converting it to Pathfinder and other game systems.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I've liked seeing is just how, like, it's not only immersive what you guys have created, but it's so easily accessible, and it doesn't really seem to matter what level of gaming you're in or what platform you're on and using. You can absolutely access this and add this to your ongoing campaign. That is cool.
We really want the people like myself and like Rick Hines and Pat Edwards are other writers on the project. We've been playing these games for a long time. We grew up playing tabletop role playing games, whether it's LARPing, live action or whatever, online, doesn't matter. And so a lot of us have favorite characters. I have even some, Mage the Ascension characters that I still play with, some vampire characters I still play with. And the cool thing about the Red Opera is I can take those characters and I can run them through the Red Opera. And we have multiple endings. Player agency is a really important piece of this particular campaign and setting. And so you can run it with different alignments and different characters, different backgrounds, and have different endings. Let's say, for example, so this is a warlock ruled city of the Shadelands, and let's say you play a paladin or a cleric. Some of these people hate warlocks and think they're evil and like want to kill all warlocks, like death to the warlocks. And one of the options for this, and this isn't a huge spoiler, one of the options as like our final ending of the Shadelands is to destroy it, to burn it to the ground, to raise the whole thing and make it cinder and ash. And if you're playing a cleric, that actually would be a viable outcome for your character to want to do and destroy these, in their eyes, these evil beings that are corrupting and stealing the souls of humans. And we've incorporated that into the story arc. And we're like really proud of that, honestly. We think that's really cool.
So why don't each of you tell us a little bit, just real quick, and I apologize, but why don't you tell us what you guys have done as a part of the Red Opera? Like what were your contributions?
Totally. David, jump in. Tell us about the art of the Red Opera.
Sure thing. So it was kind of funny when Jamison introduced me to this new project, because we in previous projects we come from a really art book and graphic novel background, and actually for me, like it kind of sounds weird, but I had never heard about Dungeons and Dragons, of course, but this type of games, RPGs, I never heard about it. So it was really interesting when, first, like when Jamison told me, "Oh, we are going to do an RPG," I was like, "What are we doing?" What? And now it's like today, it's like, dude, that was the best decision ever to do this kind of project, because it's so fascinating. Like, while we were making research to how we can bring our art style into this world, it really came about with doing some proper research, and especially like going to bookstores and buy this kind of RPGs. And then I bought a couple of books, and watching how the art is poured in these books, it's really interesting, because it's a completely different dynamic from a standard graphic novel, because the image, the purpose of the image in these books, it's for the GM to be able to describe the world to the players, and it's so important having a really good narrator in these type of games. I think I didn't play yet because I didn't found someone that could narrate a campaign really well. But I'm super excited to try these games. But to come back to the art, many of the inspirations came from video games, actually. The AAA video games, especially their art books and everything that is around their marketing materials. For instance, Blizzard with Diablo, with World of Warcraft. I got a couple of books about them and see how they design things, because the Red Opera is kind of set in that visually in that world. So it was really interesting going through their art books and be like, okay, how can we apply this style into the Red Opera? And the process was really a discovery. We start to the process, the technical process, let's say, was using 3D assets and using a software called Blender. So it was kind of funny using 3D assets and putting them in this 3D software, and we were kind of like playing on a sandbox, like when we were little kids with our action figures, So it was pretty interesting doing that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun for us to be able to try different things and to try and create a campaign setting that visually that had never been done before. And I don't want to speak ill of Wizards of the Coast, we just wanted to try something a little bit different. And no one had ever blended 3D assets before for, again, for a graphic novel like we had done previously with photorealism in The Last Amazon, or certainly not with a RPG or TRPG campaign book. And I think we pulled it off. And ultimately, though, people who read it and enjoy it, they'll let us know if they like it or not. But I think people enjoy it so far.
I think also the goal was really to leverage the AAA quality we see now in movies and in games, and really bringing to this medium. It was really interesting. Yeah.
All right, I got my big question, because I really wanted to know where you guys each fit in, and that answered that for me. And I know Brad had a really good question, so I'm going to let him go.
I'm curious. Music seems to be a huge part of the Red Opera, and it's kind of a multifaceted question. But what were some of your soundtracks that you would listen to if you do play, RPG? And how did you hook up with some of these collaborators that you have for this project?
Totally.
Talk a little bit about the music.
Absolutely. Well. No, that's an awesome question. So for me as a writer, my main passion, I think, just kind of in life, and it may be a bit of escapism, but is video games. I just love video games. I just love everything about them, particularly their soundtracks. And so for me, when I write, I usually will be either listening to some like low level like EDM or trance with no lyrics, or some video game soundtrack. Anything from like Suikoden, which is old school JRPG, Suikoden 2. There's actually a new basically Suikoden 6 that just came out on Kickstarter. They're calling it something different. I'm very excited about. But even like Final Fantasy soundtracks. One of the great things about video game soundtracks is it really is very emotive, because they'll have themes specific to certain interactions between characters, and so you can really get a lot of emotion from those tracks. That's what I like to listen to personally. I know David is pretty similar in that regard. One of the things for us and I do that also when I GM. So when I run a campaign, I'll usually pull, and I'll branch out to movie scores as well. But eventually, you can only listen to the Gladiator soundtrack so many times until you're like, all right, this is a little, this is a little much. So how this book actually came about, and Brad, this is kind of a slightly longer way of answering how we got hooked up with this band, Dia Morte, these amazing talented musicians that then are recorded with the Budapest Scoring Symphony for our soundtrack. Drake Mephisto, who is the frontman and writer and lead of Dia Morte, was hanging out with Rick Hines, our lead writer for this project, and actually saw a copy of The Last Amazon at Rick's house, and said, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we could have a production value this high for one of our books? And Rick goes, well, I actually know and work with those guys. We can ask them. We can maybe figure something like that out. And so they talked it over, and we all got on the phone and talked about it a lot for a couple of years actually, and then finally worked out all the details. And one of the ideas that I had was, I was like, guys, we can actually create, based off of the Red Opera album, a fully fledged soundtrack and embed it into the book itself in QR codes. And so Rick Hines, the lead writer, actually took the lore from the Red Opera album, rock album. This is like a heavy metal rock album. For people that like that, I highly encourage you to go check it out. And took that lore and rewrote it as a campaign setting, and then Drake Mephisto of Dia Morte rescored that album for classical music. I like heavy metal. It's fun. It's not, my favorite, especially for gaming. I like it to be a little bit more epic and less aggressive. And so having our score be fully or orchestrated from an actual professional orchestra brings that movie quality to it, while it still has all of that poignant power that you find in a heavy metal, rock album. And so we actually have samples on our website of what that score sounds like. And so you can go check it out at theredopera.com. But we had an actual like professional movie score orchestra do this soundtrack. And we're including it in the actual book as QR codes. And there's digital downloads too. But each act of our 10-act series has a corresponding song. And so, and that song is written in conjunction with the act. So some of them are a little bit more low tempo, some of them are a little, more horror scary, others are huge battle scenes, and those musics, just like a movie, correlates to what you're then going to be playing in the actual game itself.
Cool. That's amazing. I love it when different mediums can combine like that in really interesting ways. So that's a very cool thing that jumped out at me when I was first looking into to the Red Opera. Kendra, I'm sure you have some more questions.
You would be correct. From both me and Brad, though, actually from everyone, even Seth, and the entirety of us, we were so excited to see you guys hit not only gold, but you guys did it in 40 minutes. 40 minutes was all
I know. We were so it was very overwhelming for us such a small team. We're just like, please, internet, like our stuff, and apparently they do. I guess, I don't know.
Well, the internet responded in droves. You guys, for those of you who don't know, Red Opera currently has a Kickstarter that is going that we will obviously link with this show, but. Not only do they have one going, 19 days left, base goal of 10,000. And as of this morning, you guys hit 82,000. My gosh, what are your guys' reactions?
I think my reaction was, obviously was really surprised, really surprised, especially when at the first hour. I remember we were like before pushing the button like to launching the Kickstarter, we like the half hour before, everyone was in Discord on the chat, and we were just like freaking out. Should I push it? Should I don't push it? And it was when we push it, I kind of like had to step out and do something else, and like I think I was maybe out for 10 minutes, and then when I came back, I was like, oh my god, this is rolling. and it when you have that feeling that you don't know how to react, because we had a certain expectation, right? That not seeing numbers like rolling so fast, like a slot machine, and and it was really impressed in mesmerizing, like looking at the page. And I think I just like until we hit the goal, I think I was just looking at the page, like the numbers going, and then I had my wife like in the next room, like, so how's it going? And I'm like, it's going really well, I guess. It's going really well. And I think the moment I realized it more, it was when I took a screenshot of us hitting the goal and sent it to my parents and my in-laws, and everyone in family was like, oh my god, that's so amazing. I think the experience of that day was amazing, and then we were like, well, now we have to do stretch goals, let's do them, and then like more work rolled in, of course, and gladly to do it. I'm always happy like opening Photoshop and updating the file to stretch goal unlocked. I always like to enable that layer and then save it, and then and update it on the Kickstarter page. There's such a satisfying moment, because it's like, okay, we were able to to make another step on this ladder, and another
Totally.
step was made. So it's so satisfying doing that, because we see the progress that we are making, and the artwork that is being like paid off actually, and that's really a really like a really great feeling of gratitude.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons that people have hopefully, been so motivated to support us is we set our goal very low, saying, hey, this is the book that we've created. It's 200 pages, so still very solid, campaign and setting. But we'd like to make it better. And so we've had so far each one of our stretch goals be adding actual work to the book itself. And so currently the books on Kickstarter, the base copy, the standard edition is $50. Now we've added so many stretch goals, and according to our kind of timeline, I think we'll hit all of our core stretch goals, that the book actually will have to raise in price to $60 just for printing costs of actually just printing the book, because of how many extra pages we're going to be adding. And so people are actually getting a really great discount now if they go onto Kickstarter and buy the book at this $50 price point, and they get the PDF for free, which is going to include our making of. And so a lot of the stuff that David Granjo and Carlos are working on behind the scenes, along with our other writers, Rick and Pat, are going to be included into that. So yeah, we're super proud of the well source, the wellspring of support that people within the tabletop role playing industry has given us.
We can't give our congratulations enough. Like I said, I jumped out of my chair. I was like, are you kidding me? And then getting to look at it this morning, I was floored.
Yeah. We are too. It's very humbling, and now that we have this kind of like semi platform, we have to really produce grade A quality for people. But we have free download of 33 sample pages of the actual book itself, so people know exactly what they're going to get, and we don't compromise on the quality that we put out. And that had been in our own detriment just because it was so much work. But I think now finally that work is starting to pay off.
Absolutely. Brad, you're next.
Well, congratulations on that Kickstarter. That is just incredible, and I look forward to see how you expand on what you already have. And when you originally set the Kickstarter, and you were talking about these stretch goals and how you were able to add more stuff, did you have that stuff that you were adding kind of planned and say, oh, well, if we make this, we can add this? Or did that kind of come up after you started hitting these goals? And I know you just found out this morning, but I'm just curious how far ahead that you thought on the project as far as making these stretch goals.
Totally. No, yeah. So it's a great question. So we actually had all of this stuff planned out in advance, and this is the book that we had wanted to do. We just didn't have the resources to actually make it, and we certainly didn't have the resources to print it. Printing, at least with the quality, because we're not just printing this as though it were like a tabletop role-playing book. We're actually printing it as though we're an art book. So we have much thicker paper, much more high-quality ink, much more high-quality cover. There's foil inlay on the cover in 2 different tones. People don't make RPG books like this. It just isn't a thing. It's very cost prohibitive. And the reason that we're going above and beyond is because we have an amazing, lead artist. David Granjo he's just incredible. And so we really want to, yeah, well, it's the truth, dude. And we really wanted to highlight that with art book quality materials, like you'd find in a making of book for like a Disney movie, like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, something like that. So we had planned out. Here's our core story, 10 acts. That's done. Some ancillary information, setting for the city, and having that part completed. But what we really wanted to do was create this definitive guide for warlocks for both players and GMs. And that was our ultimate goal, but we didn't have the resources to do that. And that's why crowdfunding is so amazing. We were able to say, okay, this is where we're at now, and this is what we can provide to you. It's already done, actually. here's a sample of it, and we can print it for $10,000. We don't make any money. In fact, we would, lose a little bit of money. But, the book is out there, and, people would be able to enjoy it. Or if people really do like this is all the things that we have planned. So we have 3 subclasses. We have a bunch of side quests. I think we've added almost like 80 to 90,000 words of text. It's basically like a whole nother book, and just an ungodly amount of additional images, full page images, sketches, sidebar images, so much different stuff. Adding a bunch of new magical weapons, different locations within our city, and also surrounding areas as it relates to the city. So not even directly inside the city itself. A new intro quest that ties into a subclass for warlocks, an outro quest. That's actually one of the ones that I'm writing. And it's not been done yet because all of these things hadn't yet been completed. And so, the only downside to this is it will push out the release date of the book by several months. But, we're working on this stuff full time. And so we're going to be able to get this, done, we believe, finished product. The book will be in people's hands, hopefully by the very beginning of next summer, maybe the end of next spring. But we're hoping second quarter of 2021 for a completed date.
Even though that's really soon, it still seems like so far away for people to get their hands on this. It's so it's such an amazing piece of work, but it's definitely going to be worth waiting that little extra bit to get your hands on it.
Totally.
Especially after seeing what we've done with the last Amazon. People go buy the book. You will see what we mean.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm not even going to lie to you guys. I have not been able to stop singing that book's praises. I feel like I'm this little bug that keeps getting into people's ears and buzzing annoyingly, but it's because it really is. It's something that we haven't seen before. So not only are you guys changing the game up in the comic world, which, I really can't even call it a comic. It is, but it's not. But, also, you guys are doing that over here for tabletop gaming as well. You brought up the different variations of the book, and David, absolutely take full props. Those things are so sickening. The artwork on that cover is awesome. It is eye-catching. It is wicked. Where did you guys come up with the idea to do the leather-bound Necronomicon version?
Oh yeah, that's fun. So I originally met Rick Hines, the lead writer for this project, when his first book, Seventh Age Dawn, for people who love urban fantasy, 100% check it out. Again, that's Seventh Age Dawn by Rick Hines. That book, was published by a publishing house that also published my first novel, Rune of the Apprentice, which is high fantasy. So if you like high fantasy, check out Rune of the Apprentice. And we were joking around of, man, I hope someday we become successful enough as authors to warrant a leather-bound version of our book, even just for fun. And we were like, man, like who would even make such a thing? And this is, 5+ years ago, probably more, maybe 6. And we were just kind of, joking around. And, as I started to become, more well-known within the community, started making more, business connections with, in the publishing world where we are now, I was able to make contact with an amazing leather worker at a Ren fair, actually, here in Colorado. And her name is Melissa, and she just is an amazing leather worker. And she's just so cool. And so she's actually done the mock-up. We have on our Kickstarter page, that's a real mock-up of the book, of the cover of what it'll look like, that David Granjo then took the cover and then, superimposed it onto a book in Photoshop. But the actual image is her prototype for the Red Opera leather-bound version, the Necronomicon, as we're kind of jokingly referring to it. It just is kind of like the ultimate GM book. You know what I mean? Like if you're a dungeon master, and I'm talking about like the ultimate dungeon master, and you would take out a leather-bound version of the Red Opera, there's nothing like, you light a few candles, man, and you're good to go. And there's the soundtrack, like fully music score quality soundtrack. What else could you ask for? Maybe some coffee. We have that too. We actually have fully branded Dorian Coda's coffee, so you can make some coffee. That is like a very, very, very robust dark roast. Of course, it has to be for a heavy metal warlock campaign. Give them custom dark roast coffee with a leather-bound book and light some of your own candles, and you're good to go.
Everything is covered with the Red Opera.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I'm missing is a cloak.
Heck yeah. Yeah. Or yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's so cool. You guys have coffee?
We do have coffee.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
And our coffees is, in my opinion, I am so proud of it too. So there's the coffee industry right now, actually, because of COVID, is really, really struggling. There's a bunch of different kind of like people who have written really interesting articles about this, actually, talking about how we're potentially going to actually kind of lose a lot of our coffee outsourcing. But we actually partnered up with Initiative Coffee. And so this isn't just like some like random group. These Initiative Coffee actually is a fully fledged gaming group that goes to various conventions. And Rick Hines, our lead writer, is actually good friends with the founder of that organization. They met at I think maybe I don't remember what convention in Chicago, but one of the local gaming conventions there. And they're famous for just providing coffee at cons. It's pretty awesome. And so when I was going back and forth with Initiative Coffee, of kind of like, all right, we want to have coffee, but we want it to actually like mean something and not have it just be kind of a throwaway thing. He's like, okay, so there's actually a really great fair trade organization. I'm going to butcher their name, but it's Rao Ketagara Gayo, and it's an all-woman cooperative focused on overcoming gender inequality in Indonesia. And so the money actually that goes towards buying this coffee helps a all-woman run co-op in Indonesia. And so they have a really, really great initiative there in it's completely family-run farm, and they're one of the most well-respected fair trade cooperatives in the Gayo Highlands, and that's one of these regions where coffee comes from. So yeah, we were just really cool, really, really proud to be able to partner with an organization like that and hopefully do a little bit of good while we're drinking some really great dark brew.
That's just awesome. You guys gotta stop stealing my heart. Stop it. Brad, how about you? I know you've got more.
One of the things I noticed is that you mentioned that you kind of want this game to be approachable from new players as well as advanced. And since I love games, but I'm not a game designer, so I'm curious what kind of challenges that presented to you to be able to make it accessible to everybody.
Totally. And so I guess I would ask, like, so that is a perfect answer, and we had that in mind. But I would say, like, okay, like I would almost turn the question back on you, Brad, and say, like, would you be interested in reading it from a perspective of just the story, or be interested in actually like running it, like being a player? Because the answer would be a little bit different. And we focused on both of those two demographics: people to just wanted to read, enjoy the art, enjoy the story, and people that wanted to play it for the first time.
See, now I'm a big story guy. Story
Cool.
rules everything. So when I play games, to me, it's all about the story. Like from a video game perspective, I'd much rather have a good single player campaign and a great story than a multiplayer experience. So I would say from the story.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the same way.
Exactly.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, we're the same way. We're the same
Yeah.
way. Yeah. Yeah, Red Dead Redemption is a perfect example. I loved Red Dead Redemption 2, one of my favorite games of all time. But then I went and played Red Dead Online. I was like, nope, not for me.
Yeah,
I'm done.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm done. So again, with Rick Hines being the lead writer, Patrick Edwards and myself, all published authors. So I'm in more high fantasy, sci-fi. Rick Hines, urban fantasy. Patrick Edwards, more kind of sci-fi comedy. And his book is Space Tripping. So if you enjoy sci-fi comedy, almost like gosh, what is it? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a little bit like that. Check his book out. It's very good. We really wanted to have the actual campaign itself be readable just as a story, and people to be able to read through and actually have a strong affinity for all of the characters, for the location, and for the actual character arcs of the the overall meta story happening kind of behind the scenes and in the forefront. And so from that perspective, we then have crafted a story that has that. Now, interestingly enough, it's a little bit like a choose your own adventure. So even if you aren't running this as a player, you still in your head could be like, and I remember when I read, the first draft of the book that Rick gave to me, I was like, oh, well, I would totally do this. And then I got the ending that I wanted out of the story, even without playing it. And it's not as robust as a choose your own adventure, because that would be impossible for a tabletop role-playing book, but we have multiple endings. And because of that, you actually get to have your cake and eat it too. You don't have to play the story as a player, but you still get to have the ending that you want. And the corresponding art done by David Granjo, Carlos, and others is absolutely outstanding. And it really brings that story to life as though it were a graphic novel.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I like to hear, and I'm totally agree with you on the Red Dead Redemption 2 thing, and that's kind of one of my go-to when it comes to great storytelling. That and The Last of Us. So, I love hearing how video game storytelling kind of inspired the actual this tabletop game. So that's kind of fascinating as well. So thank you for that answer.
Totally. Brad, let me actually speak to that, because that's something that's really near and dear to David and my heart. And I'll let him speak to it a little bit too, but I'll just say my piece. So for us, ultimately, we want to make video games. That's our goal at Apotheosis Studios. That when the inception of this organization was video games, and it still is. Now, I love Dungeons and Dragons, Wraith the Oblivion, all of it. And for a small indie studio, you have to take manageable steps first. You can't bite off more than you can chew. And eventually for us, we are currently working on a video game called Shadow of the Moon, and we similarly want to innovate that medium and genre in a unique way, much like we did with The Last Amazon, and like we're doing now with the Red Opera. But to really pull that off, we know that we need to take more time and even get more experience under our belt.
Yes.
But when we look at games like the Red Opera, like Red Dead Redemption, and other similar epic stories, whether it's with Witcher 2, Witcher 3, things like that, that's where we would like to be headed in the long term, and that's what we draw inspiration on. I don't know, David. Sorry, that was a long answer, but share your thoughts too, man. Sorry.
No, totally agree. And one of the things that really as an artist and like kind of art directing the Red Opera, it was actually really interesting. For instance, taking the case of The Last of Us Part 2, when the game was released, their art director John Sweeney is a really great artist, and he actually shared like how they created some of the steps of the game, especially working on like taking reference from the real world and adapting it to the game, and that was a huge inspiration, like a huge slap of inspiration. Not only the game, and that game is gorgeous. It's amazing, and I think, talking a bit about the inspiration, I think playing those type of games really inspired you, especially if you are trying to work towards the creation of something artistic, being the writing or the art or the music, whatever it is, and that, I think it was God of War also that really brought a lot of inspiration to create this the book, and also the future projects that we have. For instance, Shadow of the Moon. Once I finished The Last of Us 2, I wanted so badly to play to go and start working on Shadow of the Moon, because the not in terms of story, but the mood and the visuals are from The Last of Us are really inspired to us. And I think I think you remember, Jameson. I was sharing like the art of The Last of Us. I was like taking screenshots of the game, like,
Totally.
oh, look at this, this is so cool, like. And also one of the things that I really like about these narrative games, it's also seeing the going deep into the team that created them to understand their mindset, like how did they make this so amazing, like why this game is so amazing, like and I think we are truly blessed at this time with the internet, having these artists sharing their knowledge. There's our director at Santa Monica, Raf Grassetti, that made God of War. He has a YouTube channel and he makes podcasts about like, and he tells things about like the process of doing that game. And even yesterday, there's a what's it called? A kind of a conference going on, which is called Lightbox, and it's a online like classes, master classes. And actually yesterday there was a freelance team that works for Naughty Dog, and they were talking about the process, and I stayed up until 1 a.m. because I'm in France. But learning from these professionals, it's even just them talking about the process is so inspiring. I stayed up, I think, until 3 a.m. just thinking about that. Like, oh God, we have to do this.
And we actually bring that learning. So David will go out and he'll listen to these interviews. He'll take these master classes, and then we as and these are mostly like Gen X folks who've been in the industry for a while, and we as millennials and Gen Z will literally leverage real time. Like he's talking about an interview that he listened to last night. He then posted in our Discord chat. That's how we do internal communication, because we're a fully remote studio with people all over the world. This is how we can learn from these industry luminaries. And then in our call on Monday, which will be our all hands meeting, we're going to implement new strategies based off of these Naughty Dog strategies that they use to make these games. And no other time in the history of any form of art development has that been possible, that we, a fully remote studio, can learn real time from another fully remote studio halfway across the world in Santa Monica, and then implement that information into our game right now. It's absolutely incredible.
It's absolutely fascinating what technology can do, and the fact that you guys are able to take away from like you said, from Naughty Dog and implement it into your own. It's absolutely amazing, the things that we have nowadays that we didn't have in the advent. So
the internet is amazing.
It is
amazing. Yeah.
Now, I think my question, because I went through the Kickstarter and watched the video, and all of the quotable moments were what captured me, because who's doing the narration for your video?
Yeah, there's some great ones. David and I have been joking about those for the past 3 months. So it was a toss-up for us of who should narrate it. It's narrated by Rick Hines, the lead writer, and it was either going to be he or myself, or we were potentially going to hire someone. I was like, we can do it ourselves. We had to do a lot of takes, and Rick nailed it. And it's funny. I think I was joking before the before we started recording of how when you're a small team, you have to wear multiple hats. I actually was the audio engineer for that and went through and edited everything and like removed all the pops and the clicks and, weaved together all the different takes. But yeah, there are some amazing quotable moments from that Kickstarter video. We had a lot of fun and Rick did a really great job.
Sometimes I speak to my cat and look at him like, so other than your soul, what do you have to lose?
We had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I looked at my dog this morning and I was like, the only way to hear our secrets is to hear our soul.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Rick and I co-wrote that together. It was a lot of fun of putting in like as many like kind of like almost cliche lines that we could, but like delivering them so seriously that like you had to take them serious. And it's a serious thing. Like this is a D&D Warlock campaign, so it's like totally makes sense, but still to have fun with it. Because like at the end of the day, like it's a game, like if we're not having fun making it, you're not gonna have fun when you play it. You know what I mean? So it's like if we're not enjoying ourselves, our end user and our fans, they're not gonna enjoy it either. So we try to always keep things light and fun.
Exactly, especially fantasy. It's a team that is taking really it takes itself so seriously. So I think doing those like quotes, it was really interesting, especially doing the trailer and listening it multiple times.
Oh, hundreds. We've listened to it hundreds and hundreds of times.
And it was always like it's the trailer that I never got like tired of listening. Man, you did a really great job on that editing, actually, man. with Ray.
It ain't easy. Shout out to the audio engineers, particularly the one who's going to be working on this recording that we're currently doing. It's hard work, and we salute you, audio engineers of the world. Thank you.
That was a great salute. Brad, it is your question.
I was gonna kind of ask you what's next, but you kind of already talked about that with talking about the video game idea. But is there any other projects that you guys have on the horizon that you'd like to talk about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's really interesting. So when you have a multifaceted team that wants to accomplish different goals, you actually can work on multiple things simultaneously. So we have actually our own sound engineer whose name is Taylor Borgen. He's doing a fabulous job. He's actually already created many songs for the Shadow of the Moon video game and graphic novel. We'll be having the music embedded into that graphic novel as well. And so we kind of are pushing multiple boulders up the hill. When this project is done, we're going to take a little bit of a break, couple months, and spend some time on Shadow of the Moon. But after that, Rick Hines actually has another 5th edition book which will be ready to go very, very soon, actually, which we're incredibly excited about. And he and I have been talking about producing that book, again, for years. And it now looks like we'll actually have the resources based off of this Kickstarter campaign to do that next one, and then hopefully be able to have each subsequent Kickstarter kind of fuel the next one. And hopefully then we'll all be able to feed our families. We'll see how that goes. But our next project is called the Storyteller's Forge. And that is, so it's really interesting. So David Granjo kind of said earlier in our talk today about, if I had only had a really good game master, I would have loved to play this, when I was younger, but I couldn't find a good narrator. And that's a really, really common thing that we hear. Be like, oh, I totally would have played this if I had just known someone that could have run it. And it's not that they had other geeky friends, just nobody was a GM. Yeah. And so the Storyteller's Forge is literally that, a forge to create storytellers, not a literal forge with fire. That sounds very painful, but a figurative, kind of epic shaping of a storyteller to be able to bring them into a way in which they then can actually create the actual games themselves. And so we're going to be taking that idea and then moving forward from the perspective where they then can actually go forward and become that fully fledged GM and game master. And we're incredibly excited about that. We're then going to continue going and creating additional 5th edition content while we move forward with our other projects. It takes years to make a video game, and while we do that, we're going to be able to engage with fans and followers in a way that allows us to continue making content while we're doing other projects.
Cool, thank you. I can't wait to see what you guys come out with next, and I'm already super excited for this video game. So yeah, I'm going to be definitely scouring the internet for more news on that. Kendra, I'm sure you had some more questions.
I always do. If ever in doubt, I have questions, and I need answers. And the answer is not 42 in this case.
Mhm.
So, in the Red Opera, the world is it is very large. And tell me a little bit more about the Shadelands and the characters. One in particular has caught my eye, and I know it's because of the PR. But Majin, is that correct?
Yes, Majin the Betrayer.
Yes, tell me.
Yeah, so Majin is a super interesting character. So it's so funny, we've been having fun and geeking out kind of like behind the scenes of like how we created it and are thinking about it. We haven't really actually talked about the actual Red Opera story that much, which I'm totally fine with. We've been really having fun just talking about kind of more like the insider baseball behind the scenes stuff. So yeah, let's dive in a little bit with the remaining time we have. So Majin the Betrayer is this very interesting character that was birthed out of Rick Hines' imagination of what would happen if you took a kind of non-personified like Elrich energy of the Well of Souls. And this is this area in which the veil between realms and planes is thin, and that's kind of the premise of the Shadelands. And so any person, you don't have to just be a warlock, is able to actually make a pact with a patron, and that energy is personified in a singular entity known as Majin. And Majin, obviously, in his name has betrayer, but the notion of whom he's betraying, what he's betraying, and things like that are not. It's not as cut and dry as you would necessarily think. So when we take this idea of you take a non-corporeal entity and then you personify them into physical form, what would happen? Well, for Majin, he's never eaten food before. So the actual concept of these human things like eating food, defecating, sex, things like that, he has no basis in which to actually interact with those things. Even he's come in as a tiefling, as a male tiefling. He can pick any form he wants. He's an incredibly powerful being, and he's just kind of playing around. And for him, the world and the machinations of this kind of human realm is basically like a playground. It very much is like a stage for him to orchestrate this grand opera, and for him, he's then able to kind of flirt around and dance around, kings and deities and gods to achieve his goals. And I don't want to say exactly what that is. You really play through the campaign and read through it to see how the story progresses. But to take this character that was at one point not quite a god, but close, and then put that thing into physical form as a male tiefling, blue skin and horns and everything, and then let him loose into a warlock-ruled city is pretty exciting.
Okay, that just further drives my interest, and my interest is already piqued, but because his character is so striking. David, was this one of yours?
Yes.
Art-wise?
Yes. was really fun to to meet him.
Brava. I mean, he's gorgeous.
Thank you so much.
David, take a moment and maybe just like really quick. So Rick provided kind of a write-up of what this character looks like, but then obviously in the book there it's a fully fledged like 3D model that then David paints over, and like maybe talk a little bit about that process.
Yes, please.
Yeah, for sure. I remember the first version he was a really old, because I took a really old model as a face, and then you guys you were like, oh no, he's a seducer. I was like, oh okay, let's change his face for something more attractive. But the process was, we use these 3D assets specifically for characters. For environments, we use other types of assets, but for characters, we use DAZ Studio characters. So this software allows us to just drop assets like characters, creatures, cloth, and it's going to their website. It's really like going to a store, like buying cloth, buying creatures, buying, kind of weird saying this, but buying models, like buying people as models, and then in DAZ we can mix everything together. So I think his process was from Rick's description and being a tiefling, and then it was going to Pinterest or our whole friend Google and see how a tiefling looks like. But the margin was from his, because reading through his story, he's a really, from what I interpret of him, it's like the betrayer. I mean, like, what's his agenda, right? In the other characters, they have some light to them. Even the Accursed King, the way he's drawn and he's made, is like the posture of a king. There's something powerful in him.
Eagle, yeah.
And Fate too. She's like this fighter vibe. And in the illustrations, especially the character ones, we really wanted to push to that. But Majin was really different. I remember like searching for a type of light to make him a mystery, because even his horns are kind of hidden in the shadow. But with a couple of strokes, we can see like how his horn is shaped, but really subtle. And the fact that he's kind of hiding half of his face, it's like, who is this guy? What's his agenda? And one of the things that Jamison says a couple of times that I kind of caught it is like, his name is the betrayer, but who is he betraying, right? Like, it's really giving that mystery to the character, not only to the text and the writing, but also through the art, so people get intrigued by him.
And you nailed it. Yeah, amazing character model and art.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, because I love getting the insight, and you guys, like you said, you guys are definitely an open book. So I appreciate you guys being so upfront with not only the behind the scenes, but also helping immerse us and the listeners into this world that is the Red Opera. Now, I know we've taken up a bit of time. Do you guys mind if we do one more question?
Please do. Yeah, please.
All right, Brad?
I always like to kind of ask this, and I'll ask both of you, what was kind of your initial interest, or what got you into, whether it be games, graphic novels, this entire culture? What was it that drew you to it when you were young?
David, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm not like, I think like what inspired us from like childhood to make these worlds. That's the question, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. I got a big old answer. If you want me to go, it's up to you. It's up to you, dude.
I think my interest was picked because in a really young age, I was introduced to drawing, and basically all my education, I was striving for making a job related to drawing for sure. And I think it was in my college that I had a teacher, this really great teacher that she handed me over. She introduced me the world of Photoshop. And because I was like really intrigued, like asking my parents and friends around, like how do you do these cards, for instance, in like the card of the Pokemon cards and like the art, in those cards. I was like, how they do this? And seeing like game magazines at the time, like concept art was really like, it didn't actually exist as an official job. It's an illustrator, right? Like if you were working on film, for instance, the guys that made the first Star Wars, they were not concept artists, they were illustrators, they were painting things. And concept art came really late as an official, like maybe 10 years ago, or even more, but as an official job, let's say. So getting resources at that time was really hard. It was like, oh, if you want to pursue this, you need to be like a graphic designer, something like that. But then the passion for video games really came out well from the video games, but also like getting the art book, getting everything that is art-wise around that game. My first art book was actually from a Portuguese company that made a game called Under Siege, and they shared their progress, and that was my first art book. And then it was Darksiders. And once because Darksiders at the time came out, and I was like, oh, this is kind of God of War, but in a other spin. And then I bought their art book because it was made by Joe Madureira, a really Marvel comic book artist. And now he's like rolling to the Darksiders games. But I knew his name, and then I saw his name on the art book. I was like, oh my God, I need to buy this. And at the time, it was an investment, buying an art book.
So for me, honestly, it was 100% escapism for a troubled childhood. So I don't know, not to get like super real here on your guys's podcast and interview, but I grew up in a place that was not a wonderful place to be. And I really retreated into fantasy novels, science fiction novels, comics, video games to try and find some semblance of happiness for myself. After I got older and had a lot of therapy, I was able to then achieve that happiness, no longer in fantasy land. So for me, having that experience of creating those kind of environments in my own mind really prepared me to then be an author and a world builder professionally. And so I no longer needed to do it as escapism, and no longer needed to use it as kind of a resource for my own emotional and mental well-being, but instead to do it to inspire other people. And so I actually created the Rune Chronicles, this whole kind of land of Terra, that is based on my first novel and Shadow of the Moon and a lot of our other IP when I was really young. And then, over years and years and years of kind of fleshing that space out of like really actually just pretending to live there, we've then have been, as a studio, able to create a lot of IP grounded in that location. And one of the greatest assets of that is that this place really feels very real. And that's because to me, it really was. And arguably, it was a lot more real, at least emotionally for me, than my real life. And that's like sad for, young Jamie, the boy. But now I think we've been able to leverage that to, be able to inspire other people. And the reason that I bring it up is when I talk to other authors, particularly in fantasy and sci-fi, a lot of other people, and particularly writers, have a very similar experience. And I don't know, I don't want to be presumptuous like Brad about about kind of what draw you into, fantasy, science fiction, and role playing, in particularly for people that are, into tabletop RPGs. But for me, I now am incredibly honored to hopefully be able to inspire a whole new generation of kids who, for whatever reason, are drawn to, role-playing games. It doesn't have to be like kind of doom and gloom like my childhood. They can do it just because it's fun, and that's rad. But for kids who, our world is a dark place, man. It's not a great place to live. And I think that by giving people an opportunity to kind of take a little break from that, and be in a place where there is like justice and honor and things like that, can hopefully make those dark nights a little bit brighter. And that to me is a huge honor to hopefully be able to facilitate that for people who are in a similar situation to me.
Cool, great, thank you. That's very inspirational, because I think that that escapism is always very, very valid for people going through difficult things, and that's probably something that kind of transcends age too. I think that anybody, no matter what the age, can use a little escapism every now and then.
Totally, yeah, and it can be a super healthy thing, and then give you the kind of personal power to dive back into your normal life, with kind of a new sense of gusto and like personal strength. That was my experience, at least.
And Kendra?
I think my final question will be this. So you guys had me at having a soundtrack for every set of the Red Opera. You had me at the quotable moments. David, your artwork, mind-numbingly beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it, really.
Well, and I mean it. So when I say that, please take it as it is, because it is mind-numbing. It is absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
It throws back to people, for me, like Boris Vallejo. I'm probably.
Oh my God! I'm so happy. I'm so happy that you said that. I literally was showing some of his artwork to my daughter yesterday. That's amazing.
Wow.
It is. It harkens back to that. That's actually like just another small world tidbit. I recently did an interview where someone had asked me what my foray into comics was, and Boris Vallejo was actually my foray into comics.
That's
I
awesome.
started out with his artwork and then moved my way into Chaos Comics. But David, your artwork is very reminiscent of him. It's the very first thing that pops into my mind when I look at it. Because I'm just like, wow, I could see this as a huge painting.
Yep.
And I would be completely fine with it as just a painting, just to look at it.
Yep.
Thank you. But I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Julie Bell, I think Boris and Julie, were married or at least together. I don't know if you're familiar with Julie Bell. She has a very similar style, yes. And they both are amazing. I literally have an art book on my coffee table at my house, and my daughter opened it up and she hadn't really looked at it before, and she was like, "Wow, this is really, really good, Daddy." And I was like, "I know, it's amazing."
Just wait, little one. Just wait. There's
Exactly.
such a great world out there for you. But for those of us who, I guess my question would be, for those of us taking away all of that, tell us what makes the Red Opera special to you. Tell us why people who maybe don't play desktop gaming, because you've already got that world on lock. They are there for you guys. That support is through the roof. But for people like me, who don't necessarily do desktop gaming, what makes this so special that I should step into this world?
Yeah, so again, for us, we try to approach things on a creative side where people can come into it and just see the art, see the piece of art as art in and of itself. And so the actual book is a coffee table book. It is of that quality, just like Boris Vallejo? I don't know if I know how to pronounce his last name correctly, or Julie Bell. the Red Opera has that quality to it, even just on a visual aspect. And so people can have that as almost like this, centerpiece where you can just flip through it and be blown away. And so a person doesn't have to be into tabletop RPG games or want to, grab a foam sword in their cloak and dagger and run around, run around the park at night and do LARPing. You don't have to be in it to that degree to enjoy what we've created. And so it's our hope that we can have this work intersect many different aspects and many different fandoms within fantasy, and just people who enjoy really great art, and give them something that they can really, really enjoy. That's the hope. And that'll be true for any of the projects that we work on. Last Amazon, Shadow of the Moon, anything. We hope them to just be, art in and of themselves.
I really like that answer because I'm a reader. So to know that I don't necessarily have to get in on the gaming side of it, even though I'm probably going to want to step on that side of it, but I can just read it and enjoy the artwork and flow through it. That is really, really cool. That's not something that you see every time you look at some of the D&D books, or even going back to what you'd mentioned way back at the beginning with Vampire the Masquerade. I mean, those are wholly immersive gameplays. They're meant to be played out. So to hear that this one is more story driven, and of course you've got the music backer, that is so cool. David, what about you? What would you say to somebody to draw them in?
So I'm actually one of those people because I'm pretty new on this world, and one of the things that really drew me in was my how the game is actually played, and it's really a game of a storytelling, a narrator, and people. And seeing because I was seeing videos on YouTube of how they play it, and it's so interesting seeing people playing it, and I think it's a really great avenue for them to really dig into their imagination, because these type of games put them in that mindset of imagining things. And today in our work, a great percentage of work today, we it's not it doesn't go to use their imagination. Maybe, of course, creative works, of course, but everything outside of creative works, right? And I think it's really a great escape as normal video games to take a session and just imagine the setting you are doing with friends, with people that you know. It's really interesting. And one of the things that Jamison was saying about the art and the writing, something really resonates with me when we met the first time while working at TLA, was that people will enter the door talking about art books and these kind of projects. People will open the door because of the art, that they will stay because of the story. And that really resonated with me, and especially with this project, that I was discovering it as we were working on it as a team, because we learned a lot of things during the process of this work. It's funny, even my parents were like, "Yeah, man, you leveled up. You're good. I like this." And it was funny seeing that. But the interesting thing is really comes down to, this is a place where you can be free to imagine a quest, and it's so interesting, and it's really interesting. Yeah, that would be my take on that.
And I like hearing that. I like hearing that it's not just, what's the term I'm looking for? Old hats, veterans. I like that there are people like you, David, who are new. Like, this is a whole new world.
Mm-hmm.
And you embraced it beautifully.
Thank you so much.
You too, Jamison. I mean, you
Thank
guys
you.
have done fascinating work. I mean, like I said earlier, I cannot stop recommending Last Amazon, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same with Red Opera, especially with how well received this is going. And again, from us, congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's both an honor and very humbling, and we're excited to make more content for people as well. Produce more 5th edition campaigns. We've got our eyes set on some additional character classes and additional Storyteller's Forge to be a GM tool. Shadow of the Moon and many more.
All right, and as with always, I know you guys have done this before with us, and we definitely appreciate it, not only once, but coming back on, especially in the middle of a Kickstarter, because I know you guys are busy little beasts. So we definitely appreciate you coming back. We look forward to seeing this not only succeed, but seeing future projects coming forward. And I will bug until I find out more about The Last Amazon's next one and what happens with Daniel.
Absolutely. Well,
Thank you.
To be able to talk with some, awesome gamers like yourselves and comic aficionados is always a pleasure. So anytime you'll have us, we'll be back.
I will make a note of that and hold both of you to it. All right. Well, that will conclude our interview. But I do want everyone to know where they can find you, where they can find the studio. So, Jamison, we'll start with you. If people want to get in touch, if they want to reach out, what is the best way?
Yeah, so you can go to apotheosisstudios.com. But if you're interested in the Red Opera right now, you can just go to theredopera.com. That's where our Kickstarter is currently being live right now. Check out David's amazing trailer, and we think the Kickstarter page will speak for itself. So that's theredopera.com.
All right. And David, if anybody wants to reach out to you and with questions, with comments, with compliments.
David, tell them about the Discord. David, tell them about the Discord.
Oh,
server.
yeah, for sure. It would be on the Discord channel, Apotheosis Studio community. So you will find that on theredopera.com, right in close in the beginning of the page, you'll find this little Discord tag. So you can click on there and you will do all the accepting the invitation, and there you can ask any question. But same for me too. It's Apotheosis Studios and the Red Opera. There you will find everything.
Wonderful. And Brad, thank you so much for joining me on this one. This one was absolutely a blast, and I knew you were going to have a great time.
Yeah.
If people want to reach out to you, where can they find you, Brad?
I want to thank you guys, too, for coming on. That was a very enlightening conversation, so thank you so much for your time. Like Kendra was saying, we know you're busy, so thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, hope to do it again.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back. You can find me writing news and reviews, dccomicsnews.com, and you can find me on the Mad Love Podcast, and you can follow me on Twitter at FlickyB1.
All right, and I have been your host, Kendra Hale. I can be found at on Twitter at DevourAllWords, Instagram, InkstraC. I also do news and reviews for Dark Knight News, as well as being on the podcasts here. If you guys have found any of this content, you can go back and see the other interviews. Anywhere that we play, we are on Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, anywhere that you can listen to a podcast, we're there. And you can also take a look at our social media sites with Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram. Find us. We're there. Now, David and Jamison, we do have a tagline that we would love for you guys, if you haven't already, to help us with. And that is at the end of every podcast, we say, read more comics. Would you guys do us the honor?
Sure.
Read
more
comics.
Thank you both so
thank you
very
guys.
much.
Of course. Yeah, And I would say read more indie comics. Support it. It doesn't have to just be us, but support those indie creators. It's so awesome to get some fresh blood out there. There's a lot of really great indie studios. So from an indie studio creator, from the bottom of my heart, I say thank you so much for supporting indie creators.
Absolutely our pleasure.